Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
This afternoon, we have a very exciting opportunity to speak with Brian Ritter, who is the founder and principal product consultant at R2 Consulting. He helps startups and enterprises architect and launch AI-driven platforms, data products, and custom software solutions. So we're going to hear Brian's story, and it's pretty fascinating. When I looked at his background, his academic career is outstanding, by the way, far more than a lot of people have gone through in terms of college and education. But what led you, Brian, first into product consulting, and what made you decide to build R2 Consulting around helping organizations take products from zero to one? Share your story.
Well, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me on the show. I've always been drawn, I guess, to the earliest stage of product development, where you have an idea or a business problem, but there's still a huge gap between the concept and something customers can actually use. As you mentioned, my background spans quite a lot of things in terms of academics, product management, technology, analytics, entrepreneurship. Over time, I realized that lots of organizations and entrepreneurs struggle, not because they lack good or even great ideas, but that they don't necessarily know how to turn those ideas into a viable product that adds end user value. They may understand that the industry works in a certain way. They may have a subject matter expertise, but translating that knowledge into product requirements, into the architecture, the UI, UX, prioritization, things of that nature, and to build a scalable piece of technology, that's a very different skill set. That's really why I built R2 Consulting with my business partner, Ashwin, around 0 to 1 product development. We come in when something is still relatively undefined. We help to determine what you should actually build, how you validate the concept, how do you design that product versus something that's really undefined, something that maybe you shouldn't build. And that's kind of where we come into play. So we can build the technology that gets into the customer's hands, and then we can learn and iteratively improve the product with those key stakeholders. For me, that's the most interesting part of product development, because you're not just creating something, you're creating something that didn't exist before to solve a pressing problem. And that's why taking something from 0 to 1 is so fascinating to me.
You know, it's interesting. It's like you're almost going from the point of their thought, what they're thinking about doing, helping them create it. Then they have to probably patent it, I would think, and get all that work done, I would imagine, before they even get into a product concept. And you're helping them solve how to do all that. So for you, why is it important to help them solve that problem?
Well, I think the reality is that a lot of people bring in these great ideas and they bring in their own subject matter expertise. But going from ideation to a market-ready product is a very challenging thing to take on. And I find it fascinating to be part of that process, to help someone take something in their mind and create a tangible product from it. And so working with them hand in hand, whether it's through customer discovery or they're a little bit further along in the process, sometimes it does involve trademarks and patents and things of that nature. But ultimately, being able to kind of share some space within their mindset to help them take an idea and turn that into a viable product is really what fascinates me personally. And that's why I've been so excited for what we do here at R2 Consulting.
I imagine it's really a rewarding thing to see that evolution occur and the client realize, oh my gosh, my idea can actually turn into something. So who are your ICP, your ideal client profile? Define who that would be that you like to work with and can help the most.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is it's kind of ever changing. We don't really have a niche target customer or an ICP per se. A lot of times we're working with early stage startups. Sometimes they're well-funded, sometimes they're bootstrapped, but we also work with large enterprise customers as well. And so depending on the different stage of development in the organization, and the different stakeholders you work with, sometimes you get kind of a different set of factors that factor into, this product development process. But ultimately, it's about outcomes more than it's about deliverables. It's about being able to help them make their vision a reality. And that's the part that really fascinates me, and that's why I love what I do.
Now, is there a client size that you prefer? It could be an individual, I imagine, or it could be, like you said, a large enterprise. What is your most commonly, I call a sweet spot that you end up with in terms of working with?
I would say early stage startups are probably, I guess, that sweet spot, if you will. And most times it's several different founders, co-founders working together, maybe with a small team. A lot of times, they may have some sort of a prototype or even a minimally viable product, and they're looking to scale it. They're looking to turn it into more of a MMP, if you will, and bring it to market and really commercialize it.
So when you look at that, you've got different, as you said, stakeholders involved, multiple decision influencers, decision makers, and how do you settle on, is it more in a company like you just described, a committee decision or independent decisions, and they get collectively together to say, let's go forward?
I think in business in general, the answer is it always depends.
Right.
Different organizations operate differently. They have different hierarchical structures. Some are flatter than others. But ultimately, I think it's the best idea and the best path forward. And how do you get there? Oftentimes, I think it involves using data and leveraging data to make informed decision making. And sometimes that comes in the form of a committee. Sometimes, we will make suggestions and those suggestions are taken. Sometimes they're not. But ultimately, it's working together in concert that really helps to bring about the best possible outcome.
So, which is logical based on what your sale is. You can't brand it and say, this is how it's going to be for every company. It's going to be independent. So you've got to be flexible. So with that being said, how do people find out currently about R2 Consulting? Is it through past satisfied clients, referral? Is it a media campaign, social media that you utilize, such as LinkedIn or other business-oriented media tools, conferences that you might speak at? Or have you looked at just by doing a direct email campaign targeted to particular clients that you have data on, you go after them? And last but not least, have you thought about even looking at how podcasts can be beneficial for the growth of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. In general, referrals have been our strongest acquisition channel. We really work hard to delight the customers that we work with, our clients, and we go above and beyond because their outcomes really dictate our future success as well. So we have a vested interest in those outcomes. Professional services are fundamentally built on trust, particularly when someone trusts you with strategically important product-oriented decisions. That can often in turn turn into a recommendation for a future client or even a future project with that same client group. And so that really has been, I guess, our strongest acquisition channel. That said, we've been exploring agentic AI for outbound sales. We definitely, depending on the different types of projects that are out there, we definitely look into social media as well, and other channels such as podcasts, even search engine marketing and things of that nature as well.
Okay. So you talk about you've got your clients and they are satisfied and they will come back or use you for another project within the organization. How do you measure the metrics of success of what you've delivered to that company so that they're happy and come back and use you again? Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with more than the deliverable itself, but the outcome of that deliverable. And in terms of metrics of success, we're looking at things like their user acquisition. Did we increase sales? Did we reduce some sort of inefficiency? Are there cost savings? Are we able to leverage data in a way that previously wasn't accomplished before? In those sense, we use those type of metrics in terms of, I guess, how we view our success. And ultimately, our client satisfaction is paramount. So if they're satisfied, if they feel that we did a good job, then we feel satisfied. And that's why more than 90% of the customers that we've worked with have come back for additional projects.
That's huge. I mean, to have that retention and only a 10% runoff is outstanding. And that is measurable. The metrics you talked about, increased sales or reduced costs in particular areas, is definitely measurable. And people are always concerned about what's my return on investment and what is my metric analysis. And I'm glad you guys have thought through some real ways they can capture that to see if there's a value for what you guys provided, which obviously there is. So you think about today, out of 50 podcasts I've done, the last 50, easily, 49 of them, AI was a major topic. I think it was one that it wasn't. So with that being said, this is a big issue right now in terms of all business enterprise. Where do you see the biggest challenge for your growth the rest of this year and going into next year, since it's becoming a saturated somewhat industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the answer is we don't really know how things are going to play out in terms of this, AI boom era, if you will. We're right now just at the tip of the proverbial iceberg. That being said, I think the conversation has shifted a lot in terms of, what your capabilities are versus what you should actually build. And that is really the interesting question that comes across our plates often is, yes, we can build this and we can build it much faster than we could previously. We can ship more robust features, more feature-rich products, but should you? Just adding an AI layer to a product doesn't necessarily add end user value or business value for that matter at all. And so you really have to go back to the Stephen Blank and the Eric Ries era when you're talking about product development, so that you ensure that what you're building is actually going to add value. And we do that by building and measuring what we've built through different analytical metrics, and then learning from that through real user feedback and different feedback loops. And, with AI, things that used to take months or even longer to build can be accomplished in a fraction of the time. But just because it can be accomplished in a fraction of the time doesn't mean that you want to build every bell and whistle into a product. You still have to understand your target market, what problem you're solving. Is it economically feasible? And really, are you solving a gap that's pressing enough that people are going to pay for it and make a sustainable venture?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I'm curious, just myself, hosting this. Let's take, for example, someone creates a product that's actually a tangible product. It's not a software design. And how do you guys help them in the manufacturing of that product to have all the enriched characteristics it needs for customers to buy it or desire? How do you guys do that?
Well, in truth, we haven't worked on any tangible products. We've exclusively worked in the software realm. That said, sometimes, and in some cases, we work with businesses that do have tangible products. And a lot of the business challenges they face may involve some sort of challenge or complex issue that requires custom software on top of it in order to then facilitate maybe that tangible product that they're selling. So in some cases, we may build a custom software solution that's an internal application for the company itself that may provide deeper analytical insights, leveraging different types of artificial intelligence like machine learning, for example, to whether supervised or unsupervised, to look for parsimonious hidden patterns within the data itself that can then illuminate something of value, something of worth that they can leverage to make a better informed decision with that product.
Well, you can tell your education came into play with parsimonious and illuminate. Those two words in that answer were outstanding. I loved it. I'm a big believer
Well, I
in the
appreciate
spoken word. I love it. I love it, man. All right, so now I want to ask you a question about, we talked about the challenges. Where are the opportunities? Where are the biggest opportunities you see this year and going into the future for R2 Consulting?
I think, there are so many opportunities specifically in technology. I think because of the advent of generative AI and large language models, people are realizing that things that may have been, cost prohibitive or, seemingly impossible to take to market, may not be anymore. And because of it, people are coming up with ideas left and right, and they want to work with companies like R2 Consulting to bring those ideas to life. And so there are a lot of opportunities. At the same time, I think, again, it's, it kind of gets to the question with all this AI stuff is, can we build this? But really, should we build this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the interesting question, because if you simply, AI-ify a product, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to add extra value. And I think what we're going to see is something maybe similar to what happened in the .com era of the past, which is where a lot of people are going to build stuff. They're going to add AI layers to existing products or new products, but they're going to miss the mark. They're not going to have done their customer discovery. They're not going to really know how to establish product market fit. And so that brings about a lot of opportunity for us because both we can come in at the greenfield build stage where, yes, we can take a product from 0 to 1, but we can also work with a lot of these companies that want to harness and leverage the capabilities of artificial intelligence to improve a product. But we have to do it in the right way. So that way we build the right thing that actually adds business value.
So that being said, you look at your clients currently, you have probably a set number of customers you currently are providing your service to. If you want to grow, are you going to have the capacity to handle growth if you guys bring on more clients? And how do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We go back and forth on this quite a lot, Dennis. We are of the mindset that quality is paramount over quantity. And so if that means taking on less clients in order to keep our outcomes delivered at the highest quality that we can, then that's what we would prefer to do. And sometimes that means turning away opportunities because we really want to ensure that the clients that we work with get the very best possible outcomes, and anything else goes against the very sentiment, the very notion of what R2 Consulting stands for.
Well, you got a core
that
philosophy,
being said,
right?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You have a core philosophy of excellence, and you don't want to have that degraded. So I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to turn down a lucrative opportunity, but when we work with clients, we want to interview them also in the sense that we want to make sure that we're the right fit to help them bring their idea to life or to take their product from 1 to N. And it's not always going to be the case. We may not always have the best resources for the project or the best understanding on how to proceed. And so it's very important that when we work with clients or prospects for that matter, that we find that match in order to work together collectively to bring about those best possible outcomes.
And do you feel currently you're in a position where you're delivering that, so you don't want to dilute your product by trying to overextend? But, business
Absolutely.
opportunity is something you never want to look back and go, what if, the old Hewlett Packard commercial? I mean, we should all learn from that, and you don't want to regret, oh my gosh, I could have brought on some clients So do you have, besides you and your partner, are there other people in the organization who work with you who help deliver some of these critical things to your customers, or is it just you two primarily?
Well, we have a distributed team internationally. We own a company in India where most of our engineers work from. And then we also have some digital marketing personnel, and, finance and sales as well. And so we're a small team, but we're internationally distributed, and we work collectively as one to, acquire customers and delight customers and everything in between.
And you're going to work on, you mentioned the agentic AI as also a way for outbound communication. So you are expanding in those areas. So when a client has interest, do you handle that? Does someone in the sales force, does your partner handle that inquiry? How does that work?
Yeah, a lot of times, it'll go through kind of our sales funnel, if you will. So initially, we may have one of our sales reps respond to an inquiry. Oftentimes, those are web-based inquiries, or someone may have reached out based on a referral. If it's referral-based, my business partner, I may step in a little bit quicker to facilitate that. And then ultimately, we really like to have introductory calls with our prospects to really understand, what they are trying to solve, what their complex business challenge is, what their idea is, to get a better idea of what's going on. And for us, it's not really a sales call at all. It's trying to understand where they're coming from, what they're trying to accomplish, and if it makes sense for us to work with them, if we're the right team to help them to solve that challenge or to bring that product to life.
That's where the discovery process is so instrumental. And I'm glad you guys are really thorough about that, because otherwise you're going to get engaged too soon with something that may not work. And then that's a negative for your referral. So I think you're doing it very methodically, very consistently. And I like the fact you're having a good quality discovery process. Well, if you can believe it, my friend, our time is up. We've had a good interview. We've covered all these areas, and I really think you've shared a lot, but I want to make sure you share with the audience how they can best reach out to you or to your company to go further and pursue working with R2 Consulting.
Well, absolutely. And thank you again, Dennis, for having me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. To find out about R2 Consulting, you can always start with checking out our website at r2c.io. We have an inquiry form there that you can fill out, and we're very responsive with that. If you prefer a more direct route, please feel free to email me personally at brian@r2c.io. And, as soon as I can possibly respond, I will. I think that's probably the best way to get in touch.
Well, wonderful. And Brian, I've enjoyed the conversation. I've learned a little bit about what you guys do differently than I thought going into it. So it's wonderful. You shared everything, and your command of the English language, again, I applaud wholeheartedly. Well done, my man. All right, Brian, you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for joining Principal Podcast, and best of luck as you guys go ahead.
Thanks so much. You have a great one.
You as well.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.